Film Diet Podcast.
And then it was just sequel after sequel after sequel.
There was no character development at all.
Just that on pure technical levels.
There are filmmakers that don't want it just to be an entertainment experience.
Hello and welcome to Media Academy Online.
Since we've been talking about animated films, in order to transition us back into the real, live action films, we thought maybe we'll do the films that have a blend of the two. So we've got both the 2D and live action slam dunk together on that. So did there.
I'm liking it.
We've got three that we're going to talk about in this series of this transition series back into the real world. Starting with
Roger Rabbit.
Roger Rabbit.
Well, Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Mm.
The 1988 action animated mystery comedy film directed by Robert Zemeckis, produced by Frank Marshall and Robert Watts, and I suppose Steven Spielberg sort of presented it.
Yeah.
Amblin Entertainment, if you will.
And this was like the first time we saw this happen. This was really a test. So this was a new sort of experiment almost between, and it was a mix of different studios involved as well.
Yeah. So you had Warner Brothers and Disney coming together.
Yeah.
As well as Amblin.
Yeah.
Who went on to do like Land Before Time and all that sort of stuff. So it's crazy. There's enemies coming together.
Yeah, it's very, very surprising.
Yeah.
How that sort of happens.
How that transpired. I mean, there must have been a lot of gritted teeth and like going, oh no, we got to do this and we got to do that sort of thing. I don't know. They must have been sort of protective of their IPs, their characters, and then I wonder how much pressure or how much control or I don't know how much they actually influenced their characters being on the screen, saying, okay, that can, if Bugs Bunny's on the screen for that long, Mickey Mouse is going to be on the screen for that long, or that sort of thing. I wonder. I'm just curious about that sort of thing.
So I guess we should probably talk a little bit about the story.
Yeah, so it's a noir set in 1947, where toons act in theatrical cartoon shorts as well as live action films. They regularly interact with real people and animals and reside in Toontown. So there's like another separate kind of town than the real world. So you got that sort of blend of real world city, and then they go through this sort of, is it like a portal, or it's kind of like a secret doorway into Toontown? Gateway, that's the word. Basically, Roger Rabbit hires Eddie to investigate rumours about Roger's attractive wife, Jessica, being romantically involved with businessman Marvin Acme, owner of both Acme Corporation and Toontown. After watching Jessica perform at an underground nightclub, Eddie secretly photographs her and Marvin playing patty cake in her dressing room, which he shows Roger. A heartbroken Roger aggressively declares that he and Jessica will be happy again and flees. It's all that kind of noir tropes, basically, and it just sort of spirals from there.
Well, I mean, it's the name sort of gives away what sort of happens, but it's really the film is it's a film noir film really, and where it's sort of like an investigation.
Yep. That's
the jumping point for what happens in the story. And it's interesting how that they built a film around the interaction of these characters. So it wasn't just in some of the ones that we will talk about, some of the other films that we'll talk about, where you've got the real world and you've got the cartoon world, which are separate. This is very much interacting with one another, and this was new. This hadn't been done, and this was before visual effects or any of this really. This was when 2D was dominating the platforms, the industry. Just finally technology had gotten to the point where they reckon
it was opening up, where
they were able to put the two together, and the risk was it just might look ridiculous. It might not work. It might feel
disjointed.
Separated. And not feel like it belongs as a
in the same
cohesive
frame together. which is very understandable because when you look at it now, like it looks good, but you can see the cracks very easily these days. I mean, come on, it's been how long? I've got good memories of this film.
Yeah,
You know, I remember being like very much sucked into it, even though it felt very adult. I remember when I was a kid because of the noir thing. You got Jessica Rabbit, who was very, you know, sexualized, and even the baddies in it were very mean, and you know, like it didn't hold any punches really. It was pretty out there, you know, and it was PG, so it wasn't a full G. It was pretty.
And that's an interesting sort of thing to talk about, is that when coming up with a film like this and trying to blend the two, where you got 2D animation, which is by nature over the top and overacted and, you know, very larger than life, and then you've got the real world, which is traditionally quite held back and realistic, and there's realism there.
Yeah.
And trying to blend the two, where where it's not stupid, where you just got these people that are overacting, just going crazy, and then having these characters that also feel like they belong in a quote-unquote normal world. And that's the interesting thing, and I reckon the genius for them is by going with the film noir style.
Yeah.
Because automatically you've got the stylized, you know, when film noir was huge, when that was big in the 50s, 40s and 50s, you know, it did have that stylized feel to it. And so you were able to play with that idea, and that allowed the 2D animation portion to sort of come together to create a cohesive piece. And I reckon and I feel that's the glue that made this work.
Yeah, for sure. That's a really good point. I didn't think of it like that, but that's so true, because it kind of creates a heightened reality that you could believe this thing happening. And it's a good kind of, once again, it's also another good take on blending the two, because noir, when you think of noir, it's very shadowy, blacks and whites.
That's right.
You know, that kind
contrast,
of feel.
Yeah.
And then you got animation, you know, like Disney or Warner Brothers or whatever, very colourful. So it's like the opposites coming together to make this product or film or piece of art, I should say, really. The president of Disney, Ron W. Miller, in 1981, saw it as a perfect opportunity to produce a blockbuster. Obviously, he hired some scriptwriters who wrote some drafts, and then Robert Zemeckis offered his services as director in 1982. Disney declined, as his two previous films were bombs, Want to Hold Your Hand and Used Cars. Robert Zemeckis just was struggling at the start. Every film he kind of did until Romancing in the Stone were bombs. So between 1981 and 83, Disney developed test footage with different people who ended up being in the film. So you had Paul Rubens voicing Roger Rabbit, who is Pee Wee Herman. So he actually voiced Roger Rabbit in this test. And different people played Eddie Valiant and whatnot. And obviously that was just a test. And then the project was revamped in 1985 by Michael Eisner, the new CEO of Disney. Amblin Entertainment, which consisted of Spielberg, Frank Marshall, and Kathleen Kennedy, were approached to produce Who Framed Roger Rabbit alongside Disney. The original budget was projected at $50 million at that stage, and Disney felt that was too expensive. You got to remember this was in the 80s too, so that's like, I don't know what the equivalent of that is now, but it's probably over 100 million now. But it was finally greenlit when the budget decreased to 30 million. Which at the time still made it the most expensive animated film ever greenlit. Walt Disney Studios chairman Jeffrey Katzenberg argued that the hybrid of live action and animation would save Disney's animation department. Spielberg's contract included an extensive amount of creative control and a large percentage of the box office profits. Disney kept all merchandising rights. Spielberg convinced Warner Bros., Fleischer Studios, King Feature Syndicate, Felix the Cat Productions, Turner Entertainment, and Universal Pictures to lend their characters to appear in the film in some cases. Stipulations as how those characters were portrayed, for example, Disney's Donald Duck and Warner Bros. Daffy Duck appear as equally talented dueling pianists. And Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny also share a scene. Apart from this agreement, Warner Bros. And the various other companies were not involved in the production of Roger Rabbit. The producers were unable to acquire the rights to use Popeye, Tom and Jerry, Little Lulu, Casper, and Terry Toons for appearances from their respective owners. Terry Gilliam was offered the chance to direct. I don't know who, Terry Gilliam from Monty Python. That would have been a bonkers.
That would have been insane.
I'd love to see that version. I mean, Terry Gilliam's been up for... He was meant to direct Watchmen at one stage. So many films that's gone through his fingers.
He's an interesting guy.
We got to do a podcast on him.
Only some films work with him though.
Yeah. I just want to see them though.
Imagine him do a superhero film.
Watchmen. I want to see his version.
Yeah.
He actually he said that has to be a TV show when he
right.
was developing it, so it can't be contained in a movie. He said the project was too technically challenging. And in brackets, pure laziness on my part, he later admitted. I completely regret that decision. Robert Zemeckis was hired to direct in 1985 based on the success of Romancing in the Stone and Back to the Future. So he's on a roll now. He's got his style. He's handling effects really well. He's proven himself. And Disney executives were continuing to suggest... the guy that did the test to direct the animation sequences, but Spielberg and Zemeckis decided against that. Richard Williams was eventually hired to direct the animation. Zemeckis wanted to film to imbue Disney's high quality of animation, Warner Bros. Characterization and whatnot. So Harrison Ford was Spielberg's original choice to play Eddie Valiant. But his price was too high. Bill Murray was also considered. But he missed out on it. Eddie Murphy reportedly turned down the role as he misunderstood the concept of the cartoon characters and humans being coexisting. He later regretted that decision.
Of course.
And Chevy Chase, Robin Williams, Robert Redford, Jack Nicholson, Sylvester Stallone, and so on were also, in the runnings or contacted. So it's funny, this film... could have been so many different other things.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's very interesting because it is such a hodgepodge of Hollywood. It is all of Hollywood coming together almost.
Yeah.
To become something.
A product of Hollywood.
But that's the thing, right? It's so hard. We can appreciate it for what it is now. Now it's done. But before this is done, trying to explain that to someone would be insane.
Yeah. Like, I'm still wrapping my head around it right now.
Yeah.
Like, when I remember, like, when I think about this film, it just boggles my mind, because just to think how, even on the technical side, how they even dared to go and make this sort of thing at this stage. Yeah. And I don't know, it's just so bizarre. Like, it's such a bizarre idea to even base it on Roger Rabbit. Yeah. A character that no one really knew at that time. I'm sure he was based... He was around at some point, I think, in book form. I think that was his first...
I'm surprised Disney weren't like, has to be Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, like the first ever animation and sort of movie has to be the biggest animated character of all time, Mickey Mouse or Disney or something. But
Daffy Duck or one of the Donald Duck or one of the ducks.
Something. It just blows Bugs Bunny even. I mean, he got his coming, but...
Yeah, we have to give credit to the director because... it could have gone so many other ways. It could have been terrible. It could have fallen apart.
Yeah, he definitely, I don't know, must have been protected by Spielberg and maybe Back to the Future as well.
I reckon if Spielberg wasn't on,
the film would have gone to shit.
Being involved with it.
All these execs just fighting and arguing over this and that.
Because this is Spielberg's. This is when he's...
On top. Yeah, he's dictating. Yeah, and Disney's on the downslide. Warner Bros. Is just, just the animated sort of thing. They don't really have much territory in film. So I guess it is Spielberg that ultimately was the man that sort of, protecting the vision of Zemeckis and saying, no, he's my boy. We're going to make this work.
And just on the technology side of things, that's probably something we should probably talk about, is that it's, at this time, this was before we could easily just chuck a layer on in After Effects. This
Yeah.
was
So true.
this is before we had the ability to do a lot of that kind of stuff.
There's
where
no
we're-
such thing as layers.
Yeah. You have to come up with a way of overlaying.
Mm.
You have to do all this in cell animation, real cells,
Mm.
drawing it on a bit of, it's like a plastic.
Plastic, yeah.
It's very specific stuff, and you have to draw this stuff.
Mm.
And then you have to overlay it into the thing. And then on top of that, you need to add on little cues into the graphics to make it so that there's lighting that matches the real world.
Mm.
And that's what the trick that made this work, is that they were able to have like shines on certain parts of their anatomy and stuff that just kind of to match the footage that kind of connected the dots.
Mm.
Without that, and just having it look literally 2D, like a lot of the films that were coming out this time, that would have
Been very jarring.
and that wouldn't have worked at all. But
Mm.
being able to add those lighting cues is what I was able to, in my opinion, connect the dots on this one.
Yeah. And also, obviously, when Roger Rabbit's doing stuff or any of the characters are interacting with the physical world, they needed to sort of rig stuff to
Yeah, and that's the other thing.
yeah. So everyone's sort of interacting with nothing. It's all the thing that's triggered and that kind of stuff. So
and nowadays when we got green screen men running around with poles and sticks and stuff,
Yeah.
we're all used to that. But this is before all that was even a thing. This was before it existed. We have to figure out ways of, these boxes are going to fall down, and there's going to be a cartoon character that runs into those boxes. How are we going to do that without having any person? We can't have people. This was before we can paint them out
yeah,
in post.
before
we have to be able to
computer
do it.
animation.
We have to be able to do it where they fall, but there's nothing there physically to make that happen.
Yeah. So first, the animators and layout artists were given black and white printouts of the live action scenes, known as photostats, and they placed their animation paper on top of them. The artists then drew the animated characters in relationship to that live action footage. So they're actually drawing, as you were saying, animating to the live action footage. Due to Zemeckis' dynamic camera moves, because Zemeckis has very dynamic camera moves, and he's very good at that. The animators had to confront the challenge of ensuring the characters were not slipping and slipping all over the place.
Well, that's the thing. Like, you could have had a director that said, "Hey,
Just
everything's going to
block,
the
block,
cameras. We're not going to move the cameras. They're going to stay still." That's what I reckon most of the directors would have said.
That would have been like,
They
that's
would
the
have
only way
freaked
we
out.
can do it.
You can't do it because then as long as it doesn't move, you can draw your character, animate him, and it's fine. But as soon as you get movement, and this is strange. If you've ever tried to animate an object to something that's moving on the computer nowadays we can track them fine on computers, but if you tried to manually track something, and that's something you should try and track something, and it's funny because just bringing back, Brandon, I don't know if you remember this, our first project when we were studying.
Yes, I was just thinking
this
that.
peach.
Yeah.
So we did this little exercise as a thing where
Bit of
our
fun.
brief was a peach, and everyone came up with all these crazy different ideas, and there was like people eating peaches and all this romantic stuff. Anyway, that was our only brief, peach.
Do
And
something
we had
with
to
it.
do something with it. And so ours was Brandon ate a peach,
Yeah.
and then his head turned into a peach, and he dances with
And
a peach on his head.
Yeah.
As his head is a peach, and that was the idea. And I manually had to track that. So I understand the difficulty with doing that.
Oh, yeah.
And that's tracking on a computer. I can spend time and tweak it, right? This is 2D animation. So
Hand
first of
drawn.
all, you can't tweak it. The movement, I just got to move over a couple of pixels here and there. And secondly, you're manually have to, if the scene turns, that character has to be animated to turn with that, to look, as a 3D object, almost like that it's in 3D space.
Fucking headache.
And so being able to do that that's a very difficult that's the thing where it's very easy to just assume, like, take this for granted. And even when we're going to talk about other films like Space Jam, that was able to cheat with a lot of things because they could include 3D elements at that stage, and we'll talk about that later. But yeah, Space Jam was able to cheat because they did have all this up and coming technology, but this was before this. This is 1988. This is before we had the ability to do a lot of that stuff.
Oh man, it's just
digital wasn't really a thing.
Yeah, it's so analog. Got to think what was out at this time. You know, like what was pushing the boundaries. You know.
Yeah.
Star Wars, which is all optical effects.
Yeah.
Everything was optical at this stage. I think the only thing digital might have been, I don't know if Sherlock Holmes had come out at this stage.
Yeah. Tron
had a little something in there, and Star Trek had one, like, basically just computer things on a screen that were sort of simulations
like
that
planets and
early Pixar had developed, or whoever it was at that time.
ILM.
But yeah, there's a really really interesting effect that they had to do to achieve Jessica Rabbit's dress, the shiny sequins. As they said, it was one of the most difficult effects in the film, in the nightclub scene, because of her flashing sequins. They accomplished that by filtering light through a plastic bag scratched with steel wool.
Yeah, right, okay.
So they're actually physically scratching a plastic bag with steel wool so light could, come through that.
And she's a very interesting character too, because she's very based on 1920s, 1930s Hollywood characters, Hollywood, actors.
Yeah, she reminds me of... She that embodies all that, as well as like a Marilyn Monroe as well.
Well, that's it. She's the golden era. That's really what she is. The golden era of Hollywood. And that's what she's meant to... The song she sings is from a film in the 20s.
Right.
So it's all got,
It's got links
to all of the way through the golden era of Hollywood.
It's amazing. I'm sure the film is just,
Yeah, and that links back down to that film noir sort of time as well, so
it all works.
Yeah,
how good is that? It's such a strong concept, executed at the highest level.
Yeah, and just the thing that I find really entertaining, I don't know what the right word is, but just the way that they actually decided to have all of these men goo goo gaga over this cartoon animated character with like just overtly shapely and
she's probably the most attractive female animated female ever put on the screen, in my opinion. I think she was one of the first things I ever saw. I was like, whoa, that's a cartoon. And it's awesome.
Her hips as she walks.
It's just, you can tell guys animated that. No female would animate that. Bob Hoskins, the guy who plays Eddie Valiant. What a great performance by someone that is not your typical leading man.
Yeah.
So, for starters, I love Bob Hoskins. He's Hook, plays Smee in Hook.
Perfect.
As well as he's done some serious films as well, some performances, and he can do it all. And it's crazy because it's a children's kind of film, but it's not, because you got a guy like that. Yeah. And later on, he also plays Mario in Super Mario Bros., which is that's another story for another day, but...
But it's interesting to say that, because that's kind of the failure that this could have been.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the mess that this, avoided. This was done with such precision, such scalpel precision, and just genius precision. And Super Mario Bros., I think, was done the opposite way, which was, they had some good stuff there, but not executed well enough. Anyway, I love the film. It's always it's a fond memory of growing up with. I love the character Roger Rabbit. Yeah, I love it all. I love Christopher Lloyd. Who plays the villain that you find out later on in the film. And I love the noir setting. Anything that's noir, I just naturally gravitate to. I don't know if this was the film that kind of introduced me to noir and all that kind of thing.
I think just to my final words on it would be that I think it's powerful in in this shows that if Hollywood want to come together, they can, and it's not always about dog eat dog.
Yeah.
And yes, okay, probably took Steven Spielberg to actually make it happen.
Yeah.
But
it's possible.
it is possible.
Things are possible.
Yeah, that shouldn't. It's not always everyone against each other.
Yeah. Also, just quickly, the music by Alan Silvestri.
Ah, yes.
I love Alan Silvestri's stuff, especially with Robert Zemeckis. Back to the Future.
Mm-hmm.
He also did Predator and the new Avengers. He's done as well, so he's still around. And Alan Silvestri's score on this is great. It's a great film all around. I'd give this top marks.
Yeah.
Still to this day. And it's actually one film, if they ever remastered it and wanted to do something with it, I'd be all for it, just to see what that is. If they brought it into the 3D realm or updated the graphics somehow and, started... I know it's sacrilege. You probably shouldn't be doing that.
You see it happen all the time with games, that we get these...
Remastered.
Remastered games.
I'd love to see a remastered version of this where they've just...
And yes, we might have... That's the thing. That's the difference between gamers and
yeah.
film people, right? Is because you do it with film. We did it with Star Wars.
Don't do that, yeah.
But then we did the same thing, so there's a chance that we might have that same
James
background.
Cameron did it with Terminator 2. He re-released that in 3D. Predator got a Blu-ray 3D release. They've tried things, but they've never done something where it's like, this film is, so respected and it's got its place.
Yeah.
But let's just do something with it for its anniversary. Let's just do something. We'll always have that film and we'll always show that. But as a little special edition version of a release or something like that, get all the new kids involved, get everyone involved again, and show them how you can kind of crossbreed new technology with old and make something of it. Mm-hmm. Make it something special.
Yeah. Very good. Anyway, we'll finish on these words. Powerful words. So thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Adios.